So the Republicans have unveiled their commitment to America. Is it a modern version of the contract with America? Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy went to Pennsylvania to announce his commitment to America, a political document that he fashioned with the assistance of former House Speaker Newt Gingrich. Made famous for leading the Republican Revolution in 1994 that brought the Republicans into control of the House of Representatives for the first time in 40 years. And his campaign at the time was based on this contract with America, which was developed with the assistance of GOP pollster Frank Luntz. Looking at this commitment to America, though, I couldn't help but feeling like this was very different from the contract with America I remember looking at almost 20 years ago. Can you believe that? Well, let's check out the announcement ceremony here and the slick video that the Republicans produced to promote this commitment.
America is exceptional. As Americans, we cherish our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We salute those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our freedoms.
Now, isn't it funny that here's this party that just voted not too long ago to deny treatment to veterans for injuries that were sustained in combat? It doesn't seem like they're paying a lot of attention to the veterans, does it? Let's keep watching.
We celebrate the rich heritage of the American story and the vibrancy of the American dream.
Now, notice, by the way, that they're celebrating the infrastructure which the Republicans, by a majority, voted against, and which Donald Trump was unable to deliver for people, and that Joe Biden was able to deliver to people. What's more is I love the pictures where they show the suburban tracts of land from the 1950s, because that's kind of what they're trying to take us back to, isn't it? They're trying to take us back to an era where we could ignore black people and women and gays and other oppressed groups, when white people were absolutely the majority of Americans and could kind of do what they wanted, especially white men. I mean, who hasn't watched Mad Men and thought, wow, boy, things were pretty crazy back then? But it's worth noting that at the same time as they're claiming they want to take us back to that era, they're also not in favor of stronger unions, which was a key part to building up the middle class during the 1950s. Anyway, let's keep watching.
And we embrace the responsibility to protect and uphold all that has made this nation the world's shining beacon of hope. Unfortunately, Democrats have...
Now, remember, by the way, the Republicans are the ones who are defending Donald Trump and trying to stop any investigation into January 6th. I think that was something that really stands in stark contrast to the beacon of hope that we present ourselves as in this video. Let's keep watching.
Led America off track from crippling inflation and rampant crime to...
Okay, it's worth noting, by the way, I just saw statistics that showed that violent crime is actually in decline. You wouldn't hear that, though, because of the fact that that doesn't fit with the narrative that they're trying to sell on Fox News or that the Republicans are trying to sell. Let's keep watching.
Failing schools and border chaos.
Border chaos. I think it's funny, by the way, they use a chunk of that video that I commented on in an earlier video of mine that was about the fakest video I've ever seen. In other words, this crisis on the border is basically just a manufactured crisis, which for all intents and purposes doesn't really exist. Let's keep watching.
Worse still, they have ignored your priorities and shown contempt for your values.
Okay, number one, that picture that they show there is Nancy Pelosi tearing up a speech by Donald Trump, which I fully support, by the way. And most Americans support it based upon the way they voted in the last election. Number two, I think it's pretty clear the way the Supreme Court is acting, and Congress among the Republicans, when it comes to issues like abortion or gay marriage or addressing the climate. I would say the Republicans aren't respecting people's values, would you? Let's keep watching.
We will not allow it. The commitment to America represents a new direction that will get our nation back on track.
Now, we're going to talk about the commitment to America here in a few minutes, just to show how ridiculous it is. But I think it's important to note what the Republicans will really do when they come into office. As always, I'll link to all the evidence that I cite down below. But in this case, it's an article where they quote a Republican running in Washington State for Congress in a race that is perceived as one of the bellwether races in the country. Here's what Joe Kent said about the Republican agenda once they take control of Congress, God forbid. And I quote, "Our agenda for the first 2 years is simple: impeachment, obstruction, and oversight. The Biden agenda dies off in the crib." He also said, quote, "I used to work in the federal government. It can shut down. It's really not a big deal." In other words, what we're going to be doing is shutting down the government and having all kinds of chaos if the Republicans take control. And any of the issues that we care about, things like abortion, worker rights, the right to gay marriage, education, addressing climate change, and even, as Tom Friedman of the New York Times pointed out, likely support for the Ukrainians in their war against Russia. Point being, if you care about any of these things, we cannot allow the Republicans to win. Let's keep watching.
We can no longer afford business as usual. Starting day one, we will work to deliver an economy that's strong, a nation that's safe, a future that's built on freedom, and a
Built on freedom except for women, minorities, gay people. Let's keep watching.
government that's accountable.
Government that's accountable? These are the people who are defending Donald Trump and trying to stand in the way of investigations of his having taken top secret documents to his home and all the corruption in that administration. I mean, one thing they say about the Joe Biden administration, like the Obama administration, is you don't hear about the constant corruption that you saw in the Trump administration. Let's keep watching.
This is our commitment to America.
Okay, so we've now seen the video. Let's actually look at the details of this commitment to America and what is actually included, because you'll see it's pretty sparse. And I want to make one more point about that video, by the way. Did you notice who is featured in it? I didn't see a lot of diversity there. It was almost exclusively white people, which shouldn't be terribly surprising, because after all, as that candidate from Washington, Joe Kent, stated, quote, "I don't think there's anything wrong with there being a white people special interest group." So now we know what they're all about, right? Let's check out this supposed commitment to America. Now, it's worth noting, by the way, that the contract with America was quite specific. It talked about specific pieces of legislation that the House would pass if the Republicans were in charge. And I remember Newt Gingrich actually having a checklist that he checked through as the Republicans passed different pieces of legislation in the House. Let's see how that'll work with this commitment here. So for an economy that's strong, fight inflation and lower the cost of living, curb wasteful government spending that is raising the price of groceries, gas, cars, and housing, and growing our national debt. Now, that's not specific, for starters. It's basically just rhetoric, but also it stands in stark contrast to what we saw during the Trump administration when the national debt grew out of control. And as a matter of fact, the national deficit has gone down under President Biden. And the last time that the federal government had a balanced budget was when Bill Clinton was president. Let's keep reading. Increase take-home pay, create good-paying jobs, and bring stability to the economy through pro-growth tax and deregulatory policies. Now remember, this is the party that's opposed to unions and opposed to increasing the minimum wage. How are they going to increase take-home pay? Let's keep reading. Make America energy independent and reduce gas prices. Maximize production of reliable, cleaner, American-made energy and cut the permitting process time in half to reduce reliance on foreign countries, prevent rolling blackouts, lower the cost of gas and utilities. Again, this is the party that voted against the Inflation Reduction Act that would encourage the development of clean energy here in America. Let's keep reading. Strengthen the supply chain and end dependence on China. Move supply chains away from China, expand U.S. manufacturing, and enhance America's economic competitiveness and cyber resiliency. Now, it's worth noting, by the way, I just saw an article where they were talking about the fact that American manufacturing employment has grown substantially under this administration. So the supply chains are already moving away from China. U.S. manufacturing is expanding, and we do not have the Republicans to thank for that. Let's keep reading. A nation that's safe. Secure the border and combat illegal immigration. Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I've done a lot of videos about the fake border crisis and how the reality is that the Biden administration has been stopping immigrants and capturing them. And those are the statistics that Republicans are using then to attack the Democrats and claim that there is a border crisis. Reduce crime and protect public safety. Now, as I recall, by the way, the Democrats just passed a funding bill for police across the country. Let's keep reading. Defend America's national security. Support our troops, invest in an efficient, effective military, establish a select committee on China, and exercise peace through strength with our allies to counter increasing global threats. Isn't this the party that defended Donald Trump after he basically tried to sell out the Ukrainians? And isn't this the party that is increasingly saying that they're going to stop support for the Ukrainians if they take control in Congress? Let's keep reading. A future that's built on freedom. Make sure every student can succeed and give parents a voice. Of course, we're not going to deal with the debts that they have to incur to get an education. And here we have defend fairness by ensuring that only women can compete in women's sports. And we're not baiting the LGBT crowd right now? Achieve longer, healthier lives for Americans. Now, it's worth noting, by the way, that the life expectation for Americans declined while Donald Trump was in office. So much for that. And what's more, as they say, lower prices through transparency, choice, and competition, invest in life-saving cures, and improve access to telemedicine. They're the ones who've continually been trying to get rid of Obamacare and who fought against allowing Medicare to be able to negotiate the prices of drugs. Confront big tech and demand fairness. In other words, they want to force private companies to help spread the Republican lies that Donald Trump spreads. A government that's accountable. Preserve our constitutional freedoms, uphold free speech, protect the lives of unborn children and their mothers, guarantee religious freedom, and safeguard the Second Amendment. Now, this is the party, by the way, that's refusing to allow exceptions for abortion in the case that the life of the mother is threatened. It's also the party where you have its Supreme Court nominees talking about getting rid of protections for the free media. Hold Washington accountable. I mean, do we even need to respond to that with the kid gloves that the Republicans have treated Donald Trump with and all his abuses and illegal activity? And restore people's voice. End special treatment for members of Congress by repealing proxy voting and increase accountability in the election process through voter ID, accurate voter rolls, and observer access. So, number one, end special treatment for members of Congress. If they're so committed to that, why didn't they do that back when they were in power? And number two, increasing accountability. That's not about increasing accountability. That's about making it harder for people to vote. So again, though, if you look at this, this is nothing more than kind of some general statement of principles. Very light on details and very heavy on the rhetoric. Certainly not the type of thing that Kevin McCarthy could stand at the front of the House and check off as the House passes legislation. And just one more comment about this is that I remember the contract with America when it was first presented in a very nonpartisan way. The goal was to bring people together and especially to bring the Perot voters into the Republican Party. Remember those Perot voters who split the Republican Party in the 1992 presidential election? That's who the contract with America is aimed toward. They want to reduce partisanship with that document. This document, you might think, oh, there's more that can be found on the website, but the reality is there is no more on the website. All that you have in addition to this on the website are just a bunch of attacks on Democrats, showing that the Republicans have no plan. Their plan is basically impeach and obstruct and try to stand in the way of the Democrats getting anything done. So if you're in favor of the kind of things that Democrats stand for, like protection of abortion rights, protection of gay marriage, childcare, education, healthcare, unions, a higher minimum wage, protection for people to vote. If you care about any of those things, we know the Republicans are coming for them if they take power. That's the commitment they're making with this document. Well, if you want to see another video where the Republicans talk about their unpopular agenda, why don't you check out this one over here that I did a little while ago. Rick Scott, who's the head of the Senate Republican Campaign Committee, stated very clearly what Republicans are going to do if they take power, and it includes coming after Social Security and Medicare. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.